Guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I just wanted to do an MBTI as well as Enneagram typing for Young Justice, specifically season 1. And I wanted to start with the most controversial types down to the least. And I already did the one for Robin, so these are the rest of the characters. So Kid Flash gets typed as an ESTP, but he's clearly an ENTP. He's actually very, very smart. Really smart, because both ESTPs and ENTPs have TIFE. So the FE can still be explained if he's an ENTP, but what doesn't get explained is his extroverted intuition. So, for example, there was the episode where he didn't believe in magic at all because he's very scientific, and he was able to replicate the Flash's experiment, which is how he got his powers. And then there was the episode where he was telling Robin how to make the EMP device, right? The electromagnetic pulse device, as well as the other episode where Red Tornado, that was the same two episodes, the one where Red Torpedo, Red Inferno were attacking the cave and they used an EMP to shut them out. And then the following episode where Red Volcano started a volcanic eruption, and it's only Wally West who knew how to stop the volcano from blowing up and destroying the world. So he has a knowledge of engineering, or rather electronics and mechanics, as well as geography and science in general. So he's more scientific than he lets on. I think what confuses most people is that ENTPs tend to be the most playful of the rationales and the goofiest, right? Due to the position of the extroverted feeling, they might not come off as being very smart, right? But they do have their moments. So to me, he is quite clearly an ENTP. If it wasn't for those moments of science, then yes, I would say he's an ESTP. But yeah, overall, easily an ENTP and easily a 7-wing 8. So 7s love to have fun. And the 8-wing, I see that because he's a bit more confident. So 8-wings tend to be the more confident of the 7-wings compared to the 7-wing 6. Now, Artemis gets mistyped the worst. People will say she's an ISFP or ISTP, but she is actually an extrovert. She's actually an ESTP, and that's apparent when you view the first episode, which she debuts in, and you find that Wally West is kind of giving her shit for being new to the team, but she doesn't care. She's like, too bad, I'm the new Archer. I'm paraphrasing, but that's just what she said. And in terms of expressing her interest in Connor, like there was the time when they were on patrol, and uh, Artemis was checking out Connor's ass, and basically she was like, delicious. And then everyone was like, said they could hear her because they're all linked telepathically, but she's like, yeah, I know. So I think such level of confidence would mainly be from an extrovert. She also has anger issues at times, and I think because of extroverted feeling being placed higher on the function list as opposed to ISTPs, I think it's usually more apparent with ESTPs as opposed to ISTPs if they have the same Enneagram type. Now, the Enneagram wing, again, she often gets mistyped, and I'll go to those typings on personality database later. But basically, she's definitely an Enneagram 6 in terms of how the story is written for her, right? So the whole time she's paranoid about security, because that's the whole thing with Enneagram 6s. They just want security and stability in their life. That's what they strive towards. So the whole time she's literally just been paranoid about her place on the team and people not respecting her and thinking that she's a traitor because she's Sportsman's daughter. So out of all the 9 Enneagram types, we can see she's not an Enneagram 1. She's not afraid of being corrupted. She's not really afraid of being unloved, right? It's not really love that she's after. It's more of just having her place on the team. And there was also that moment where Huntress had said that uh, she had begged them, she had begged the Justice League to take Artemis in, and she got pissed off because she knew that, oh, it was just a charity case, and she's more paranoid about her position on the team. This is opposed to McGann, right? Miss Martian, who really cares about being loved. That's the Enneagram 2, right? She's not an Enneagram 3 because she's not really that concerned with achievement, because people who are concerned with achievement are usually more charming and they have loftier goals, I would say. Probably Speedy, Roy Harper uh, might be an Enneagram 3, but obviously that was part of his programming. He could be a 3 wing 4 or maybe a 4 wing 3. It is quite possible because of his drive to join the Justice League, and he was basically unsatisfied with being a member of the sidekicks, right? But long story short, Artemis is definitely easily a 6 wing 7. I originally was going to think of her as a 7 wing 8 or a 7 wing 6, because she is still playful in the sense that she was flirting with Connor, or very into Connor, so very in touch with her emotions. And she's quite physical and she does enjoy a lot of fun. So, like the girls' night out that they had with Zatanna. But I would definitely say her paranoia about not having stability and security is what takes precedence in her typing. I think normally with MBTI, probably ISTJs are more likely to be 1s and 6s, because have you ever met someone who they just want security? They just want a high paying job, a good house, and a good wife, and to have a good place in society. That's sort of what defines an Enneagram 6, and this is sort of a modified version of that, in the sense that all she wants is just to be part of the team and not to be questioned, right? And to put the past behind us. So she comes from an unstable family and she just wants a new family to latch on to, right? So, for example, Superboy doesn't really care that much about it. Like with Superboy, he knows he's a clone from Cadmus, but he's not as paranoid about the team accepting him. In fact, that's a very good contrast, because basically he's more paranoid about being controlled, since he's an Enneagram 8. So he's worried about being controlled. He's not so much worried about not having a place on the team. So that can show you the distinction between an Enneagram 6 and an Enneagram 8. Zatanna is an ENFP, could be an ESFP, but she's very seductive and very playful, and it can be a bit hard to distinguish ENFPs from ESFPs. But yeah, when Robin was flirting with her, she flirted right back. So could be an Enneagram 7, could be an Enneagram 2. The Enneagram 2, the Enneagram I'm not too sure about. Maybe a 7 wing 6, possibly. Maybe a 2 wing 3, maybe even just an Enneagram 4. I don't really have strong feelings on her Enneagram type. So I'm open to suggestions as long as it's 7, 2, or maybe 4. Superboy, as I said, ISTP is very self-evident. Other ISTPs include people like Wolverine, Rambo, Bruce Willis. So this silent badass type, the silent angry badass type, due to the inferior FE, is always going to be the ISTP, and he's an 8 wing because, again, his biggest fear is of being harmed or controlled. He really freaked out when he was put back in the pod to heal, and he's like, never pod me again. And obviously he has anger issues, and he's the 9 wing because out of the 2 wings, usually the ISTP Enneagram 8 wing 7 is more likely to be how do I put it, the extroverted wing and more fun loving, but he's not that fun loving. He's not always cruising on his motorbike and getting women like Wolverine. Wolverine would probably be an 8 wing 7. He doesn't necessarily enjoy fighting as much. He more of just does it so that he can avoid being controlled. So yeah, I would say definitely an 8 wing 9. And yeah, it's very self-apparent. I don't know why they'll type him as an ISFP, because he's very logical, right? It's as long as people don't, maybe it's because he's angry all the time, but people with inferior FE and combine that with the 8 wing, that would make him angry. But he is very logical, and he's not necessarily very uh I mean, he can be emotional, but even when he's emotional, it's for logical reasons. It's like, okay, these people are trying to control me, and he's not that good at reading other people's emotions, and he's not that artistic. So I would definitely type him as ISTP, not an ISFP, 100%. He's a typical ISTP. In fact, it's rare for an ISFP to be an Enneagram 8, so I don't see why they would type him as ISFP. Miss Martian, ESFJ, Enneagram 2 wing 3, very, very obvious. She just cares about being loved, and she's the motherly figure and traditional housemaker, so to speak. So it's very unique, giving an ESFP telepathic powers, because normally telepaths are the smart people. But Megan has a big heart and cares about being loved. Very, very paranoid about being loved. Didn't want anyone to know her true form, because she feared being rejected, right? So that's the contrast with Artemis. Artemis, it's more about having a place on the team, not necessarily being loved as much. It's more about the position itself on the team. Megan more cares about being loved and liked a lot. And that's why I would say there's the 3 wing, because she's willing to strive to do anything. And it's not really a lack of a fear of corruption. For example, a 2 wing 1 would not really have disguised themselves. They wouldn't really want to lie about it, but she's willing to lie and do anything to achieve her goal of being loved, which is why I would give her the 3 wing. Red Arrow, as I said, ISTP, because yeah, again, silent, solo, badass. He's a very solo person and action oriented. Just those 2 things, action oriented and solo. So that's typically an ISTP. He's very logical throughout the whole time. I don't really think anyone really questions the T aspect of it. They might question the introverted side of it, but I definitely think he was more introverted, because this whole time in the season he was mainly going solo. The Enneagram type, as I said, I'm not sure, but he might be an Enneagram 3 wing 4, driven to succeed in his own unique way, because the 4 wing is about what success means to the individual themselves. Like, he doesn't care about being loved uh, as an Enneagram 2 would. He more cares about just succeeding, which an Enneagram 4 would. They wouldn't care as much about being loved as long as they've succeeded. And his goal was just, being a rookie sidekick is not enough for me. So I need to be part of the Justice League, because that's a higher level of success when it comes to being a superhero. So yes, I would actually say he's an Enneagram 3 wing 4, and it's very fun and always unique to see an introverted Enneagram 3, but yes, they do exist. Next we have Aqualad. Aqualad is definitely an ESTJ. I don't know why they would type him as ISTJ. He's calmly assertive. He's always been assertive from the beginning, but in a calm way, like telling Megan not to use telepathy the first time she tried it, and he was assertive. He was just like, Megan, stop. He wasn't like, please stop. He just said, Megan, stop. And even telling Superboy that when Superboy had messed up with Megan, Aqualad was like, I know you've made a mistake and you're wondering how to apologize. So yeah, just say you're sorry. Like that wasn't even any of his business. So an introvert would have just shut up. But he calmly asserted himself. He just said, look, you made a mistake, just apologize. And even when they're deciding to stay outside or inside the cave, he just asserted himself and said, yeah, let's just go inside. So definitely a dominant extroverted thinker, military general, like sort of like Captain America. Mm, other ESTJs don't really come to mind, but Captain America is probably the other famous ESTJ. So very military like, very duty like, definitely a J. And as I said, extroverted because he likes to exert his control over other people. Red Tornado would be the ISTJ. So he's sort of similar to Aqualad in the sense that he's orderly and yeah, orderly and organized, but basically he sticks more to himself. Now, his Enneagram type is a bit tricky. I'm trying to decide between an Enneagram 9, an Enneagram 1, or an Enneagram 8. Because if he was an Enneagram 9, he'd be a 9 wing 8. If he was an 8, he'd be an 8 wing 9. I guess if he was a 1, he would just be a 1 wing 9, possibly, or wing 2. I think it's more likely that he's either an 8 or a 9. It's a bit tricky to decide. I'm not sure if he's an 8 wing 9 or either 9 wing 8, because when you're an ESTJ, technically you don't need to be an 8. Like, for example, an ESTJ with that's an Enneagram 1 would still be an assertive leader. It's just an Enneagram 8 would be an even more assertive leader. But I would say he's either an 8 wing 9 or maybe a 9 wing 8. So that one, the jury is out. Like, I'm not too sure. Maybe a 9 wing 8 because he values peace and harmony in the team, but he's willing to assert himself in order to achieve that peace. I don't necessarily think he worries that much about being harmed or controlled. I think for him, power is just a means to an end. So yeah, probably a 9 wing 8. Probably a 9 wing 8. Harm, the guy that's Zatanna and Artemis fought, that's an ISTP 8 wing 7. You can see the smile on his face. 8 wing 7s are more chaotic and they have a bit more fun. And yeah, I would say the difference between Superboy and Harm is that Superboy is more introverted and he's more introverted as well as doesn't really enjoy the fight as much. He just gets pissed off, but Harm loves the fight. Sportsmaster is an ESTP 8. I mean, a sportsmaster, someone who's the master of sports, would probably be an ESTP. And he's an 8 because he's a bit harsh, but I am cheating a bit because I know what happens in other seasons, which is why I'm saying he's an Enneagram 8. Lex Luthor, one of the best examples of an ENTJ 3 wing 2. Ra's al Ghul would also be an ENTJ 3, but possibly a 4 because he likes to stay in the shadows, right? But yeah, Lex Luthor, one of my favorite characters that's very underrated. I think Young Justice is definitely the best representation of him, 100%. So now let's look at personality page and see some of the differences. So Orion, I would type him later, but I don't mind him being an ESTJ. I just think that he'd be an Enneagram 8 wing 7 or 8 wing 9 because he's very aggressive. Batman, INTJ 100%, but the Enneagram type, I'm not too sure. Could be a 5. He sort of acts more like a 5, sort of, in this one. But let me go to the main characters. So Dick Grayson, I already said, is probably more of an ENFP. but a 5 wing 4, not a 6, because the 4 wing is the extroverted wing that's more in touch with the emotions. Let's see. Zatanna, they've typed her as INFP. I would type her as ENFP. I think the way she's very flirtatious and flirted back with Robin and is a bit cheeky and mischievous. I would type her as ENFP or ESFP, and Enneagram either a 2 or a 4 or a 7. I wouldn't type her as a 5. She's not that smart, but she is fun and playful. Wally West, as I said, ENTP, but yes, 7 wing 8. Miss Marston, they get it right with the ESFJ, but how would she be a 4 wing? She does not care about being unique. If she cared about being unique, she wouldn't have disguised herself as Hello Megan. She doesn't care about being unique. She cares about being loved. Let's see. Oh, Black Canary, I would say she's more of an INFJ, since INFJs are more of the counselors. Enneagram type, Enneagram type, I don't know. Hard to say what type she would be. Pretty hard. I haven't given it that much thought. Yeah, Kent Nelson, ISTJ, I agree. Yeah, Connor Kent, here's where they type him as ISFP, and to me he's definitely an ISTP. Let's see who else. Shazam, they type him as ESFP. Yeah, maybe ESFP, ENFP. It's always hard to tell the two apart. The Joker, I think he's more of an ENFP. They type Jade as an ESTP. She seems extremely seductive. I would rather type her as a feeler because she's very seductive. Clarion to me is more of an ENFP just because he's so immature. He's really immature. We all know that feelers are more immature. I can't seem to find the main characters. They type Lex Luthor as Enneagram 8, but he's clearly a 3. Red Arrow, I would type him more as a 3, as I mentioned. Artemis, here's a part where I was saying they type her as an ISTP, but clearly she's ESTP, and she's not an Enneagram 8. Her fear is not of being controlled. Her fear is of losing her place in the team. And Aqualad is an ESTJ and not an ISTJ. Yeah, here's where they've typed Superboy as ISFP. So yes, overall, those are all of the characters, at least the main characters in season 1. I don't think I've left anyone out. Yeah, so you can leave your thoughts in the comments and tell me what you think or who you disagree with. And as I said, personality page is more of 70 to 80% accurate. I think the bias is mainly towards sensors, because it is just people voting. And sometimes you might find only 10 people have voted. But even then, even when it's 100 people, sometimes they're still wrong. Yeah, so I'll watch season 2 and give you guys a review as well.